It was a chilly autumn afternoon, and the bustling streets of New York buzzed with life as people darted into cozy cafes and restaurants for lunch. Inside Brighter Horizons Cafe, a quaint and trendy spot known for its gourmet coffee and friendly atmosphere, the hum of conversation mingled with the clatter of dishes. Among the staff, Lila, a fiery and outspoken waitress in her late 20s, moved briskly from table to table, her strong convictions woven into every fiber of her being. Lila prided herself on her unwavering values. She believed fiercely in standing up for what was right, even in her day-to-day work. But today, her moral compass was about to be tested in a way she never anticipated. The door swung open, and in walked Henry Monroe, a tall, middle-aged man in a tailored blazer and crisp white shirt. Perched atop his neatly combed hair was a red MAGA hat, its bold white lettering catching the attention of nearly every patron in the cafe. Henry scanned the room with an air of calm confidence before selecting a seat near the window. Lila's cheerful demeanor shifted instantly. The sight of the hat turned her stomach, and her fingers gripped her notepad tightly. To her, it wasn't just a hat. It was a symbol of values she vehemently opposed. As she approached Henry's table, her steps slowed, her mind racing. "Good afternoon," she said curtly, her voice colder than usual. "Can I help you find a seat elsewhere?" Henry glanced up, his kind yet inquisitive eyes meeting hers. "I'm quite comfortable here," he replied with a polite smile. "I'll take a menu, please." Lila hesitated, her brows furrowing. She felt a surge of indignation. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't serve you," she said firmly. Henry tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. "May I ask why?" Her voice sharpened. "That hat," she said, pointing at it, "it represents beliefs I can't support. I don't feel comfortable serving you." Henry leaned back in his chair, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. "So, you've judged me based solely on my hat?" Before Lila could respond, Nora, the cafe manager, approached the table, sensing the tension. "Is everything all right here?" Nora asked, her tone professional but concerned. Lila wasted no time explaining. "I told him I can't serve him. I don't think it's right to serve someone wearing that." Nora's brows knit together. "Lila," she said quietly but firmly, "this is a professional establishment. We serve all our customers with respect, regardless of personal opinions." Henry raised his hand in a calming gesture. "It's quite all right, Nora," he said. "I'll take the Turkey Club sandwich and a black coffee." "Thank you." Nora gave him an apologetic nod and left to place his order. Lila stood frozen, her cheeks burning with frustration as Henry returned his attention to his phone. Unbothered by her reaction, she turned on her heel and stormed to the kitchen, muttering under her breath. The rest of the afternoon passed uneventfully, but Lila's anger simmered as she replayed the encounter in her mind. What she didn't know, however, was that Henry was far more than just another customer. The next morning, Henry sat in his home office, sipping a freshly brewed coffee as he composed an email to Nora. He detailed his experience at the cafe with a tone of understanding rather than anger, describing Lila's actions and their potential impact on the cafe's reputation. At the end of the email, he added a revelation that would change everything. Henry Monroe was the owner of Brighter Horizons Cafe. Nora's response came swiftly. Shocked by the news, she promised to address the matter immediately and invited Henry to a meeting with her and Lila later that afternoon. When Lila was called into Nora's office, she entered with a mix of annoyance and defiance. "Is this about yesterday?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Yes," Nora replied, her tone firm. "Lila, the man you refused to serve wasn't just any customer. He's the owner of Brighter Horizons Cafe." Lila's arms dropped to her sides, her face draining of color. "What? The owner?" "Yes," Nora confirmed, "and he's requested a meeting with us today. I suggest you take some time to reflect before he arrives." When Henry walked into the office later that day, the tension was palpable. Lila sat stiffly, her gaze fixed on the floor. Nora introduced him, though no introduction was necessary. "Good afternoon, Lila," Henry said, his voice calm but serious. "I'd like to understand your perspective on what happened yesterday." Lila hesitated, her throat dry. "I thought I was standing up for what I believe in," she stammered. "That hat represents things I can't agree with. And I felt I had to take a stand." Henry nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And do you think it's fair to judge someone entirely based on what they're wearing?" Lila struggled to respond. "It's not just the hat," she said finally. "It's what it stands for." "And what do you believe I stand for?" Henry asked, his tone measured. "Do you know me? Do you know my values?" "No," Lila admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Henry leaned forward slightly. "Lila, I respect that you have strong beliefs. But when you're here, you're part of a team that welcomes everyone. You don't have to agree with every customer, but you do have to treat them with respect." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I'm not going to fire you," he continued, "but I believe you need time to reflect. Effective immediately. You're on a 2-week suspension." Lila's eyes widened, tears threatening to spill. I understand," she managed, her voice trembling. During her suspension, Lila was forced to confront the reality of her actions. At first, she was defensive, justifying her behavior to anyone who would listen. But as the days passed, introspection set in. She began researching Henry Monroe, curious about the man she had so quickly dismissed. What she discovered left her humbled. Henry was not only the owner of Brighter Horizons Cafe, but also a philanthropist who had dedicated much of his life to helping marginalized communities. His business practices were rooted in compassion, providing opportunities for people from all walks of life. The more Lila learned, the more she regretted her snap judgment. She wrote an apology letter to Henry, pouring her heart into every word, and resolved to return to work with a new attitude. When Lila returned to the cafe, she approached Henry with her letter in hand. "Mr. Monroe," she began nervously, "I want to apologize for how I treated you. I was wrong, and I've spent the past 2 weeks thinking about how I can do better." Henry accepted the letter with a small smile. "Thank you, Lila," he said. "It's not easy to admit when we're wrong, but it's the first step toward growth." Over the following weeks, Lila worked tirelessly to rebuild trust with her colleagues and customers. She went out of her way to ensure every guest felt welcome, no matter who they were. Slowly but surely, her efforts paid off, and she became a valued member of the team once again. Henry watched her transformation with quiet pride, knowing that the experience had been a turning point not just for Lila, but for the entire cafe. It was a reminder that even the most difficult moments could lead to growth and understanding if approached with grace and empathy.